Hi, everyone. Welcome to this transmission. And as usual, I'm just going to check that this is transmitted on all my platforms. So if you just give me a couple of seconds to share it. And yeah, okay, it's public. And now in the groups. Okay, I think it's done. Yeah. Um, just one thing. Okay, now we're good to go. Okay, so as you saw, the title of this transmission is to talk about the loops, memory retrieval, and time ripples. Hi, Patricia. Well, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you can get some inspiration and then share with us. Okay, so as you know, in my last show with Martina, we were talking about the dream body and how it is influenced in specific ways. So I'm going to go a little bit further with that, mostly due to the event on the 23rd of March that is going to happen in relation to the rings of Saturn disappearing to our perception from our perception because they will like through the transit of Saturn taking around 29 years to give a turn around the sun and then subtly like shifting its angle around 26 degrees. So therefore, we will not be capable to see the rings. And this happens like every 14 years, around in between 13, 14 years. So this is an event that is going to create a huge phenomena. Why? Well, speaking of cycles, and even though the Saturn rings are not going to fully disappear just from our perception, that's all we need, our perception, because our reality is shaped through our perception. So now, what does the rings mean along with the loops and memory retrieval and time ripples? Well, and this is some of the topics that I will be covering in my presentation in Sedona on the 29th of March and on the 1st of April, because the way that I remember it and have come to explore more and more and more is that what we know as our DNA is a mirror to the space-time fabric. So we can say that the space-time fabric has its own DNA. So when we know how to master one, we know how to master the other. So it's like in quantum physics. With one formula, you can actually reach the answer to everything, because that's how the universe functions, with simplicity. So now, when we talk about rings, let's say that we have rings in our DNA. We have the rings of our mitochondria, which is the DNA, the shape of the DNA. And the mitochondria or the mitochondrion are the brain of our cells. Not only the power source, are the brains to our cells. The mitochondria chooses what cell is active and which one is not. So now, taking this at a higher level, at a higher scale, to say it somehow, hi everyone, when it comes to the brain, we have another bodies that are created. The name are the vesicles. And these vesicles, what they are doing are transmitting enhancers to create the synapses. And we know that the synapses are, it's the moment when our neurons entangle and then create different neuronal pathways, which create our perception. Because here comes something even more important that I will tell you all in a bit, based on how our reality is created through our brain. So let's say that these vesicles are arcs, imagine, like spaceships that are traveling through our brain. And then before the synapses happens, they are funneling information. So now, how would this relate to the rings of Saturn? Okay, so if we say that the rings in our mitochondria and in our mitochondrial DNA are the ones that actually rule our cells, and that these vesicles in our brains are the one funneling the information throughout the synapses process. Now, how important would the rings in Saturn be? What are they doing? And well, and I could go more and more, because there are other bodies in our DNA named the catenans that are also in charge of a very important process, which is mainly encoding and choosing the information. So are the rings in Saturn choosing the information that is going to be projected holofractogrammically? And I will just make a slight parenthesis of this word, because perhaps it's quite new for most of you. Holofractogrammic is the holographic part, the fractal part together, and also the energy mass. So mainly it is how the universe functions at a very precise level, how it projects, how it expands the energy, like from one vessel to another, due to the resonance in between the shape. So now, if we say that Saturn has an hexagon, there in its top, and that it's a celestial body, that it's beaming, that's what we see. And every time, every pulse that it beams, it's emitting information. Where is that information being encoded within our holographic body? At a microscopic level, in our carbon molecules. So now you see how directly it impacts in our DNA illumination process, shifting from carbon to silicon. So this is why when we restore our rhythm within to our heart, which is the universal time, why? You have probably realized that I commonly use the word remember, as far as I remember, or how my memories tell me or show to me. Well, because for me, all of this reality is a remembrance. Everything has already happened. Everything is now happening, and everything is about to happen, because we live in an infinite field of probabilities that are simultaneously coexisting. So we are not creating anything, we're just remembering what we have already created at a specific timeline or spatiotemporal constant. So this is a huge power, because then now we know, as how I was talking in another show with Rob in Typical Skeptic, that the key to harness our manifestation is to know that it has already been given. Why? Because it has been in another timeline. And when we remember that, then it's not feeling into a process and into an unknown process, trying to know how we will be coping or dealing with. No, we're tuning into the wisdom of a reality that we have already experienced or that we are already experiencing, and that we have the tools to do so. That's one thing. Another thing is, when we see the etymology of remember in Latin, it's going back to the heart. In other words, now that I have said this about remembrance and how everything is already being encoded in the space memory network, the pulse of our heart, that's the universal time. So we have the key to restore our reality through our heart, through the pulse of our heart. Because one of the things, as speaking of Chronos, of Saturn, as I was doing in the beginning of this video, Saturn is known as Kronos. And Kronos, if we look at the mythology, at the Greek mythology, it says that it devoured his 12 sons. So what does that mean? That means the DNA strands, devouring the DNA strands. So now, as I was saying, like how entangled is at a molecular level Saturn to every carbon molecule in our body, in our DNA, what information is it continuously beaming? The information that was encoded in a sixth density to create what we see today as a reality. Because the sixth dimension is, let's say, if we're talking about levels of perception, is the level of perception where, hi everyone, where the source of all, is, playing in this. It's just playing, having fun, wanting to know itself. So throughout all those dimensions, the sixth one will be when the source creates another version of itself, and that version of itself goes through a process of amnesia where it needs to prove itself as something separate from this source. And that's when that consciousness recognizes itself as the creator, and then starts to create its own things, its own universe, its own reality, without recognizing itself part of a wholeness, of a oneness, of a source of everything. And that's the sixth dimension. That's why the six is very related to the counterpart or the villain or the antagonist, of God, because it is where the architect constructs its own reality aside of the recognition of itself as part of a source of all. And the fifth dimension, Hadi, hello everyone, how I would consider it is, or how I remember it, is a field that, after going through the process of a holographic projection, for instance, we came from a reality that we say that we are in a 3D, right? The thing is that we are and we are not. We are the result, the information, the encoded information, holofractally projected from the 3D, which is a dimension full of voxels, which is information packets, which is through the interferential waves and it's a lasers, and through laser rays, they come together and they create a hologram. We are in the hologram. We're in what we could call a simulation, but we are living in different holograms, in different projections. So I was also talking in another show about, like the simulation theory. So I don't want to we won't get into that in this video. I will do a video about that definitely. What I just want to take away is the negative correlation of simulation, you know, um, to this, what I have said, what I have expressed, because simulation from this context could be taken as a hologram, basically, you know. And there is another kind of simulation that comes through an inorganic matrix that was precisely encoded to create this lack of misperception of separation from the source, you know, which is precisely the influence of the sixth dimension here, right now. Through different ways, which one of them is, as I was calling, is the encoding of the Saturn rings at this moment. So I will just address to the fifth dimension question and then go through that. So the fifth dimension is after we have acknowledged that we are a hologram and that this is not the only source of the only result of projection. There are infinite projections, that multidimensionality and that space-time fabric in which we are simultaneously coexisting. Now that we are aware of that and we are taking responsibility of that and therefore uh, embodying that power, then we come into that unity of all those versions of ourselves projecting simultaneously and aligning to the source at a first level. That is what I remember mainly is the fifth D. The communion of our multidimensional body projected into infinite realities and aligning to one mission. Okay, so, and being, like that extension of that first stage extension of the source, which would be at the ninth dimension when it is a huge another immense level of unity. I will do actually another video talking about the dimensions. Yeah, because it's a very wide topic. So, well, as I was saying about the sixth dimension, as you know, we have been connecting with a lot of ancient alien artifacts. That's one of the reasons why I came here to Mexico from Egypt, because I received the message that I needed to be here for a time to receive this information coming from these artifacts, mainly from cubes and, of course, of other things. But also, as we know, the cube is related to time. So, one of the messages that has come through is that before the last cataclysm and how all the pyramidal network was created was through coming from a ninth and seventh dimension, because actually what was trying to be accomplished is taking the Earth, planet Earth, to a seventh dimension, or to a seventh density, okay? A seventh dimensional form of perception. By this, I mean the Earth perceiving itself from a seventh density. So, in order to achieve that, they did a lot of things. I have shared in other videos as well some of the things that they did, like creating alternate Merkabahs to try to harness and a specific potency in the Earth's organic Merkaba to then jump into that 7th density. So anyway, all the pyramids were created from that level of consciousness. That was the overall, there was a unified consciousness before the last cataclysm in Earth. I'm not saying it was perfect, but at least, like overall, there was a unified consciousness. So what happens after that tries to be accelerated, and the matrix, the organic matrix or primordial matrix of the Earth collapses. Due to that acceleration, it generates fissures, needs to be restored or regenerated, and then the artificial matrix is created, an inorganic matrix through AI. And that's how now we see, the nanotechnology used and applied. Well, something similar, let's say, using very specific tech to inorganically try to fill in the fissures of the primordial matrix. That's why this matrix is entangled with truths and lies. And sometimes one of the reasons why at some point we could not remember what is and what's not, because everything, the creation was so entangled in this truth and false perception. So, hi, Tania. And so then, after that, when let's say the artificial matrix starts to become more powerful and more powerful, while the primordial matrix goes into this hibernation process to regenerate itself, all the anchors that were placed in Earth were reconfigured to a 6th dimension, from a 9th and 7th density to a 6th density, which is what I was saying. The source playing, or let's say creating an expression of itself that will experience amnesia, and then acknowledge itself as something separate from itself. It's like, bam, who are you? No, I'm different, and I'm equally powerful than you. So, okay, I don't need you. And that amnesia already dun, 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 dun. So it's like this amnesic process that where that version, that extension of the source doesn't recognize itself anymore as part of the source. And this is what we are living, if you look at what as a humanity we have collectively been creating, it's that, that part of what a lot of people would call like the ego, trying to be the center of attention. And then, which is a very subtle line, which with one like me acknowledging myself as the creator of my universe, of my own universe. That's one thing. And another thing is, it's me and I am not connected to anyone. What he does or what she does not affect me. Each one is an isolated unity. That, precisely that. And we can see this translated in religion, in science. Of course, everything is shifting now, and politics, economy. It's like, you are you and I am me. I don't need you. So that is a 6th density form of perception. And that's what happened. And all the planets were actually anchored to that form of perception, to that 6th density. So imagine that the power of each one of the planets, all that potential, was imprisoned as a wave as a causal wave of distribution to what happened, leaving them in a space of whatever they emit to the earth, to our field, to our molecular structure, to our holographic body, is a sixth dimensional form of perception. So even though, and like we're so powerful that even though that, we are already remembering that unity, that we are, that wholeness. So now can you imagine releasing ourselves from those anchors, from those energetic anchors, that what they could be doing is decreasing the natural momentum, angular momentum, which is the speed in which our DNA is meant to evolve. And okay, so then after I'm sorry, but I got distracted by someone demanding my attention. I will address to you, Harif, but when I finish this transmission. Thank you for your comprehension. Okay, so then can you imagine what we would be capable to do if energetically we're not anchored anymore at a molecular level, with all that energy beaming from not only Saturn, from Venus, Mars, like for Jupiter, for instance, in Jupiter, they just found like this a octagonal cyclones, which are vortexes, which now they are actually embedded to our natural octahedral formation of our genes. Our genes, our chromosomes, when they, like the chromosome is an X and the Y goes different. I will also talk about that in another video. But imagine that as a pyramid. You have a pyramid, and every pyramidal structure in our in our physical body, like our pyramidal neurons, like the pyramids that are created in our molecular structure of water, in our water molecular structure. The pyramid here, in our solar plexus, just below the rib cage, all those pyramidal formations in our neurons, in our DNA, in our at every level, when they are activated at their full potential, they become octahedrons. Actually, if at some point you want to regenerate your DNA, if you want to shift something in your DNA, you can visualize how that segment are octahedrons, like fully spinning, beautifully polished, like glowing and so forth. And because that is a translation of how the spin of those bodies in our body, in our physiology, originally function, originally are delivering itself. So, well, now in relation to Saturn and the 23rd, I will be sharing some information, because the fact that the rings are going to disappear from our perception, as I was saying, everything begins through perception. So if we know that the rings that have been imprinted with codes mainly related to time as a harvesting control system, where the time that we are experiencing, and by time I mean the calendar, is actually limiting the expansion of our DNA. How can today being the 10th of March of 2025 can actually be influencing the restoration of my luminous DNA? Well, I already explained through one of the ways that they have created that is through that hexagon in Saturn that is continuously projecting. Imagine you have the rings, and the rings are funneling all that encrypted information into the center of the planet. And through the center of the planet, there is a huge, as in every planet, it's a torus. So everything that beams into the center goes up or goes down. And in this case, it goes up all the way through that hexagon. And then as an antenna, boom, 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 beaming all the way to our carbon molecules. And moreover, well, we could stop this progressively if we stop living by the Gregorian calendar. As simple and as complex as it is. Why? Because through that distortion of that calendar, and again, I have talked about this in other shows, where I say that, for instance, can you imagine celebrating the beginning of the year in January, when it's still winter? What level of incoherence are we sending to the universe, celebrating the beginning of life, while life itself it's still hibernating? And that level of incoherence not only transmits in the manifestation or in our perception, it also manifests through our the decrease of potential in our DNA. Now, from that, if you, and I have a suggestion and also a proposal, if you want to do this for the 23rd, because it's a huge, huge, huge portal and gateway to shift this. So, the last one was in 2009, around, before the actually shift of consciousness in 2011 happened. So you can see where I'm heading to, because nothing did anything then. Now we can do something about that, and it can be even way more powerful, the level of consciousness that we can achieve after this in the next years. So now about the dream body, as I was saying, and the loops. So now we have the loops, that circling in the ring around Saturn, boom, 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 beaming all that information that was encoded of distortion of time. Again, not time as we have shown. Okay, yeah, it's 4:10. No, I'm talking about the organic rhythm that our body has and how it resonates or not with our reality. We are talking about the fundamental construction of how we exist: rhythm, frequency, energy, and vibration. So, about those loops, and the rings, imagine that when you are going to sleep, your consciousness is the moment where it is more vulnerable, and actually your brain, it is more vulnerable to encode information in it. Normally, when you are awake, it's a very little percentage of memory that we are anchoring in our neuronal pathways. Very little. Most of the memories that we get to have and then unconsciously be experiencing, for instance, if you have, let's say, if you have a rough day and you're asking yourself why you keep repeating those programs, because they keep on resetting while you're sleeping and you're not even aware of that. Because when we are sleeping, as vulnerable as the brain becomes, like more soft to imprint memories, the memories activate through frequency. Which memories are the ones chosen to be the ones that are going to be mostly active in our way of perception? The ones that have higher resonance. So if they activate through frequency, imagine beamings that amplify through night due to another anchors that at some point were placed in the moon. So they create a very specific reaction that then it beams a precise frequency that is anchoring as the strongest one. The memories in you that generate more emotions, the ones that produce more emotions in you, are the ones that are anchored. Why? Because then we become like this huge power source to keep sustaining all the harvesting control systems. Because the more emotions that we generate and that we don't own them, that we don't do something about them, the more that they are funneled as fuel to those harvesting systems of control. So there is a way, because our brain naturally creates theta waves within the area of our hippocampus while we are sleeping. There isn't a specific way to actually, whether if you put theta waves while you're sleeping and then, like you think and you give the command of what memories you choose to anchor, whether if it's from this lifetime or another lifetime, because remember, you have already experienced everything. You're just tuning into the channel of which one is the best present or future possible for you to embody. And you give the command and then listen to theta waves while you're sleeping so that you can encode your memory based on that. And as I was saying, I'm going to talk about this in the conference in Sedona way deeper, and we're going to do a very powerful activation on this. And so for now, as I was saying, for the 23rd, now, what would the relation of the heart and the time ripples would be? Well, the time ripples, we know that are these vortexes, or let's say these vacuum spaces where 0 point energy is generated, and then you can create anything that you want at a level of the space-time fabric and at a neuronal level. So how can you create those ripples, those time ripples? Well, we get to be creating them all the time. This is how we are continuously refreshing our memory. The thing is that we can consciously be creating them. For instance, when you want to anchor as well another memory, well, I will just explain it thoroughly, as I was saying, and even you will be able to access to the video of the conference, of all the presentations that we will be giving throughout the conference, Rise of the Guardians, and including mine. But now, thoroughly, like just going on the surface, it's a process in between pyramidal neurons and inhibitory neurons. They start to create, imagine an oscillation that is going super fast, and then another one that is saying, hey, slow down, don't go so fast. And that process, that interaction starts to create like clockwise and counterclockwise, and then you're capable to create 0 point energy and then, create a new neuronal pathway. So if you do that process, like I have recommended in other videos of the 0 point energy, you're gonna project that to your brain, creating 0 point energy and then focusing it to very specific parts in your brain. And then, like focusing in memories that you want to anchor. And there are more complex ways that are actually, well, more complex, like more advanced, that yeah, I will be happily sharing with you. So uh yeah, and that I also I will be sharing in the in the courses, in the online that I'm giving. So anyway, I will also be sharing more information throughout videos. The thing is, as I was saying, it's so deep that yeah, I'm trying to pack it up and make it really simple. Okay, so then okay, so then we go the loops, memory retrieval, and time ripples. Now, where does the heart vortex goes? If we're talking about rhythm and frequency, which is intermittence, like Morse code. Okay, so what kind of Morse code is our heart vortex emitting? And it's not, again, as I always said, it's not that romantic love that they sold to us. Like you need to accept, well, not accept it would not be the word. You don't, you. It's not about you being all honeycomb all the time. It's about actually I mean, you can, if you feel like. The thing is that is coherence. The heart vortex is about coherence, and coherence is 0 point energy. Again, 0 point energy, yes. Because if we are talking about moving forward polarity, and by this I'm not saying transcending polarity, because the two poles are needed. However, coming from that axis, and not whether you're this or that, being that axis is being that 0 point energy. So that 0 point energy is actually just being, is what I was saying, is not choosing happiness over sadness, is embracing both of them, fusioning them, creating that 0 point energy, which is that wholeness. And from there, choosing what you will embody and experience. Because then you are truly creating from the consciousness of the source of all, not as an extension version of the source to all that is limited in perception enough to believe that it's separated from all. And I'm not saying that, and I want to be very clear, I'm not saying that the sixth dimension is bad or good. I'm just saying every density has its purpose. It's just about experiencing oneself. And there are moments when our evolution, our consciousness needs to evolve. And we have reached that moment now as a collective, because of course each one of us is following its own evolution pace. However, like as a collective, we are being called now to go to the next stage of dimensional form of perception. So that's why we are bringing all those layers of our multidimensional body that is manifested in this 4D, in this holographic projection, in order to reach that fifth density. And from that fifth density, looking at ourselves through that sixth density as this is very interesting, because of course we know that past, future, and present is like spiraling. It would be like the past. Wait, but aren't we ascending all the way to 9? Again, spiraling. And that's how we hack, not in a non-linear form. because then from the 5th D, we will actually be looking at the 6th D, at something that we have already transcended. And immediately we move to the 7th. And that's what the reason, as I was saying, why the pyramids and temples and stone circles were created, actually, to be more aligned to that 9th density, to actually master the 4th density through the 8th density, which is the rings of time coming together through quantum tunneling and actually being so entangled that past and future is one, is right here, right now, through the present. It's infinite, it's the eternal present. So as you can see, we're simultaneously also existing in all densities. You know, as I'm speaking, I went from a 3D to a 1D to a 2D to a 5th D, 6th D, 7th D, 8th D, and 9th D, and so forth. Because that's our multidimensional body. And just remember that time, what we know as time, is the reason why all the wars and so forth are generated, to have control over time. Why? Because who who feels or owns or tries to own the title of the best timeline through very specific artifacts that exist of alien tech is the one who wins. But again, it's from a 6th density. It's from a 6th dimensional form of perception, because we are one. Like, there is no win. It's a win-win. And when we remember that, then we are going through the true rhythm of our heart. So mainly for the 23rd, I will be sharing more details soon, but it's mainly about reaching that 0 point energy, practicing with that 0 point energy, so that when that reset happens of the Saturn rings disappearing for a few hours, what we are encoding in our carbon, in our whole holographic structure, and emitting all the way to Saturn and beyond, is 0 point energy. Love, the essence, bliss. And we're also helping those planets to be restored to a 9th dimension or dimensional form of perception, because they're very powerful. That's why they used it in the primordial grid. Now, of course, you know, if we go from pole to pole, you know, of course, the other pole needed to be experienced, and now we go to that 0 point energy. And yeah, so I think it's everything for now. I thank you very much for watching this transmission. Thank you, Hadi, for yeah. There are a lot of codes. So you're from Morocco. Nice. Um, I don't know about Meknes, but I do know about a lot of words like Maya and Moya, which is water. So Moya in Arabic, as you know, and Maya here, and also Maya in Vedic or in Hindu language, which is illusion, and here are the masters of um, well, the ones who come from the water, and also that's the primordial name, and also are known as the ones who have mastered the simulation. Why? Because they offer a universal time. Am I saying that everything would be solved if we restore our, if we leave aside or transcend the Gregorian calendar? Yes, not everything, of course, but like the core to most of the things that actually keep captive human consciousness, yes, because then we would be aligning to the true north of our heart, to the true nature. We would be aligning our heart to the true north. Oh, yeah. And, like, for instance, the eye that we have seen all over, like throughout history, it represents mainly, like, it represents many things, but mainly the black hole, because it's the perception of the source experiencing itself. So through our perception and being the black hole or the primordial black hole, because there are different types of black holes, we're being that space where life is created, creating our reality, shaping our reality. Yeah. 0 point energy, the singularity of that black hole. So yeah, I will be sharing more details on that, even maybe collective meditation or connection, actually, to generate all of us that 0 point energy. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you all for your comments. I'm just taking a look if there was any question. I think no. Well, if anyone has another question, I will try to tune into later. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you and love to you all. HUNUH.